Okay, guys, update time. Well, you know, as with any of these kinds of projects, things are going to come up. You think you're on a roll, you think you're about to really get rolling, and you're almost there, and pow, there's something. So, as most of you may know, when your car's running, if you watch at the back of your car, you'll see drops of water. Some of you might even noticed how there's a hole drilled into your stock muffler, and that's there to drip out condensate that happens when you first start your car. Now, as your exhaust heats up, that condensate becomes less and less, and of course, it's gone. But the hole's there to keep, the water from dripping, from corroding and rusting and stuff like that. Well, with the rear mount turbo setup, you face that issue. However, it shouldn't be that big of an issue. Okay, so in my case, though, I'm using a wastegate, an HKS original wastegate 38 millimeter from, I don't know, the kit that I put this on was back in when I went to Spring Hill, Tennessee in 1999 for the performance rally. So it's old per se. It didn't have a whole lot of usage on it. That's why I used it for this deal. My last turbo kit, that little T25, I was just using the internal wastegate with the actuator. But of course here, a little bit different animal. So anyway, what happened, I got underneath there. I was doing the rear tips, getting those put on, which I'll have an update on that very shortly. And I noticed quite a bit of water coming out of the turbine housing, into the where it should be. I mean, it's supposed to be there. And I noticed on the downpipe or the exit from the wastegate, there was quite a bit of water dripping out of there too. And I thought to myself, I said, there shouldn't even be any exhaust flow going through there for there to be condensate from. So I put my hand up on there and I could feel like there was puffing coming from that pipe. Well, that can only mean one thing. The valve here is not seated in this housing all the way. And so, and I'm not an expert on anything. So I got on the internet and said, hey, is that normal for it to be, in forum after forum, person after person? Said no. There was a couple people that said, oh, yeah, until it heats up, you'll have some pass by, blow by, and stuff like that. But then when the valve gets hot, it'll expand and seal it off. Well, after it got warmed up, I had my son get in there and rev the engine, and the flow through there is pretty as if there's no seal. So I was going to pull the valve, take a look at it, see if, a lot of times what'll happen is these things will just seep by. You got to pull these things apart and check the diaphragm and all that. And I I had purchased a Chinese wastegate, and the only reason I did that, I didn't even intend to use it. I was going to use this one, but I needed the flange out of there that seals, that bolts up to this flange, and it has the ring on it, that cup that sits on it. And so I believe what's ended up here is I've once again been bitten by Chinese crap. So if you folks are Chinese watching this and you got any relatives in the business over there in China making this stuff, man, tell them to take just a bit more time and a little bit more pride in their work and make something that works. I mean, it can't be that much more expensive. I mean, some of these valves and stuff look identical. I mean, you really got to really spend some time to figure out what's fake or not. So I just don't get how you can commit that much time to making something, the production process, and it not just be right. Because in the end, word gets out, videos like this time and time again are going to expose it, and you can offer a $60 wastegate. Nobody's going to buy it. I mean, over time, you just get burnt so many times and you waste time, and in some instances you may hurt your motor on some parts that they have. But anyway, I'm not going to beat up on the Chinese. I actually love Asian people, love Asian culture, and at one time wanted to learn Chinese. I think it's a beautiful language. But anyway, so much for that. But anyway, what happened? So when I took the hose off the side port, where's that sucker at? This port right here, the bottom port. This is the one that I had hooked up. When I took it off, water literally came jetting out. And after I unbolted this thing from the flange on there, turned this thing over, and again, water just comes pouring out of there. That rusty water. As a matter of fact, when I just disassembled this, all this water came out of here still, even though I thought I had gotten all out. And you can see the moisture inside there. I'm looking in here, and I don't so much see any kind of seal on here. So it isn't, you know, moisture gets inside there. If it can get inside there, it's going to get in that port right there. That's where the air would get in at. Okay. And air comes up through here, pushes up underneath here, and of course the spring is in here, and it has the hat compressed down onto it, and of course this lifts off the seat that's here, and that's how you get your wastegate to open and vent. So in the end, with that being full of water, that's not good. And plus, the main problem was this thing was not sealing up inside here. When it came closed like this, see the gap in here? That gap is filled by that ring from the flange that I bought. And so it's just not sealing right. Okay, so it's passing by. That ain't gonna work. So I don't know that I doubt that the water failed this. I seriously doubt that. It's the water got inside. The water got inside here, and you can see it's all rusted inside here. The water got inside here because this thing wasn't sealing. Had that water not got inside here, it wouldn't have passed through here to get into here. So, need a new wastegate. What do? Well, you end up buying a new wastegate. So this time around, you know, HKS, like I said, outside of using internal wastegates and the little the diaphragms for that, the actuators, that other one is the only one I had really used. And Tial is a great company, but again, like my video on blow-off valves, that HKS blow-off valve, there's so many fakes out there, and they look so real. Okay, and this again, I'm going to rant on the Chinese again. You sorry suckers, you know, have some integrity, some pride in what you do. You know, if you're going to steal something from somebody, make it better or at least the same. Okay, how cheesy you people are for doing this. But anyway, and I say you people and I say Chinese, but obviously if you don't make parts, if you don't do stuff like this obviously doesn't pertain to you. But you've got to understand, this costs people, even though it's 60, 70, 80, 120 bucks. There are some people on the internet that run shops, speed shops, that will sell these things for $200, and you really think because you're paying the money you're getting a real one, and you get one of those fake pieces of junk. It's really flooded the market with trash. So it's just frustrating. Out of an abundance of caution, I had to go online, looked at YouTube video after YouTube video, find a young lady who did she's into racing and stuff, and she did an excellent, pointed out all the keys that you could look at to determine whether it was fake or not. I mean, they go to the hassle of making that. They put all the ports where they need to be. I mean, it's so jacked up how close they try to make these things. But anyway, there's a few key things that you can see right here. This port right here, most of them come down just with a straight. This has like a hump shoulder on either side here, Each one of these have writing inscribed on them on all the ports. This one, if you wanted to, you could run coolant through here, which they said for most applications you don't need to do that. Race application, yeah, but not this, not street. This portion here, the way that that's shaped, it's got that flat on it with a hole in the middle. Inside here, if I cared to take this thing apart, there's a button underneath this cap in the center. It has a rounded dome top with a notch in it. You can see it. You can see that part that I'm talking about inside here. You just can't see the rounded dome portion. It's got like a notch in it. The other ones don't. So I'm not going to bore you with all that stuff, but just do your due diligence and take a few extra steps. This from jegs.com, and here's the funny part. Jegs.com and all their pictures, because this is a real key right here in determining whether it's a fake or not. As it stands right now, hell, the Chinese may be watching those same videos and change their game. Okay, you never know. But for right now, well, all of Jeg's pictures had the picture facing like this way. So you can see the top portion of this, but you can't see the part that's important. And it looked like file photos that were pulled right off of eBay. And so, yes, you did see this, made in USA Tial. So I was apprehensive that, yeah, I was going to get screwed, but it's from Jegs. They would take it back, no problem, and maybe just do some feedback. They'd stop carrying them or do their diligence on their side to make sure they didn't buy junk. But anyway, I got it from jegs.com. I think these normally go every day for like $305. For whatever reason, Jegs was having a sale the day I bought this one, and it was $50 less. I walked out with this one for $250. And it was black. They didn't offer it in any other colors and stuff. Oh, I'm sorry, they did offer it, but it was more. So the black, maybe nobody wants them. They're not pretty enough or shiny. But anyway, I got this. This actually, now I think you can get this, and it may be a little bit cheaper, but it's only going to come with this with maybe a couple springs. This comes with this all-important seat, which is what was the issue with the other one. A good quality piece. Of course, that's going to seal up in here. Nice and tight fit. That just seals in there. Obviously you don't weld it inside there. It sits up just enough up above that lip, so when you set it actually makes the other side of these V-band clips. Okay, the fake ones also have real crummy, cheesy V-band clamps. These are good quality ones. It comes with all the springs that you need for the varying spring pressures. Now, I did have to go online and hunt for the guide. This is an MVS, they call it. It is a 38 millimeter. But as you can see, it goes through and it tells you spring colors, 116 and 12 and after, and here's your pressure that you're wanting to run. It'll go as low as 4 psi and as high as 24. But I don't know if this was just a generic chart, more or less, because I can't imagine running 24 pounds of boost through a 38 mil. I mean, I don't know. I guess you could. It seems like it wouldn't be able to flow enough naturally. So anyway, I did that. It does come with this, and of course it's just an exploded view. While we're at it, I can tell you, do you see that button right there where it says spring cup assembly? That button right in the center of the spring, that's how that button should look. Apparently that's something that the Chinese just don't know how to do. But it's good because you can open yours up when you get yours if there's a question of whether it's a fake or not, and you can then also, check yours to see if it's right. But anyway, exploded view here of it, MVR, MVS instructions. And back here, in case you don't know how to hook it up, there's a little drawing here for you to reference to figure it out. And it's just my Jegs receipt here, or my packing slip. But anyway, going with the Tial. I'll have this put on here probably by end of today. And I'm thinking about using from the start I had only wanted to run about maybe max 14 pounds because the head gasket on this build is just a stock head gasket. The metal head gasket at the time I built this particular engine, I didn't have one available to me. Obviously later I'd hoped to do that. I'm in talks with Unichip right now for several things, and I'll update you on that here in just a second. But I'm just going to run 14 pounds, and so if that's the case, then I may just go 7 or 10, and then use the Grimspeed boost controller to get me up higher. I'm not sure what's the better way to do that. I don't know if you figure you're going to run 11 pounds, 12 pounds, to just put in the 11 pound or 13 pound spring and let it vent on its own, because as you know, these gates start to open before you hit that max boost, unless you go ahead and use the top port on the wastegate. So I'll figure that out, and I'm gonna go over all this stuff when I get it done and get this thing out and running, and tell you what I did and how the response is and stuff. And I may ultimately go, I have a boost controller, electronic boost controller from like way back. I mean, it's brand new in the box. I may use that, but the Unichip, I'll talk to you about that here in a second. But first, little quick thing here we're going to do. The power steering pump's not working. I have an extra one here. I just need to swap it out. I'll probably end up doing that by, into today. So when I do that though, obviously you take the belt off. This belt's chirping quite a bit when I start it up. When I had the other turbo kit up here, the way the manifold was and so forth, I had to kind of come up with a different mounting system. So the stock flange or the stock bracket, I had to replace with this. And so this is just a bracket that goes from here to here. And then there's another one that I'll point the light at, and you can see it. It's the bottom one. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it goes from there up to the compressor. So that replaces the stock bracket that was here. I use the factory bracket here, but where it secures to the block down here, you can see, where is she at here? Let me get a camera the best way I can get in there. But I've got some bushings down in there that you may not be able to see. There they are, right there. In between the bracket and the block, there's a couple bushings on both sides, only on the bottom. Up here on the top, it bolts directly to the head. So that there enabled me to gap or space this bracket here away from the my turbo kit that I had up here. And all I had to do at that point was find the appropriate length belt. It actually required me to buy a 6-rib, and I cut the 6th rib off. But back then I had this one also bushinged, and so that pushed the compressor even further out. So that's why I had to use the 6-rib. Well, they had a 5-rib that was long enough, but it's just short enough to work, but just a hair too long. So on startups, it'll chirp until it gets hot, and then it'll warm up and expand and stop. So now that this thing is rear mount, I don't need this bracket, this bracket space. And so I'll go ahead and pull it off. But wouldn't you know, I don't know where my brackets are at, so I had to get some off of the eBay. And good news is these aren't Chinese. Now I didn't need this one, but just in case in the future I went ahead and got it. But this is the one that I needed, and that's the one I ended up getting. So once I put this one back on, I'll be able to put the stock belt on, which I have. And of course, in case you want a quick part number for it, stock belt is a KO 50778. That's a quick update, just to let you know what's stymieing progress right now. So hopefully I'll get these things hammered out here pretty quick, and then the goal is to take it get it over to the little school parking lot over here and play with tuning this fuel pressure regulator, because this is what I'm going to use just to initially drive it around, break it in while I'm doing the final things with the unit chip to get it set up to be installed. The unit chip's been posing a small issue because the wiring for it to go in and identify like crank signal for the timing and all that stuff, they want you to use an oscilloscope. You have to locate 12 volts, but not what you think. It isn't what you think, 12 volts. No time to explain that now. But those are the only two hiccups I see to installing this thing. The tuning process, I've been going over the manual quite a bit. It looks, man, it looks like I'm excited, actually. It's very easy to understand. And once I get really up on it, I'm going to actually, if anybody's interested in it and you're close by, you know, I'll install it for you and we can do even a street tune on it. And then the final tune, you can go and get it tuned at a regular dyno place. But there's another market that I'm interested in getting into, and I'm not going to say anything about that yet. But that one will probably be a little bit more lucrative. And but anyway, for those that want it, I'll be here for the Saturns, and there's just been some changes in the Unichip US vendor, and haven't been able to contact him. Turns out that guy retired. Someone else has stepped in, so I'm getting up to speed with them. But anyway, I hope to be able to offer you guys, but then also this other make. And I think in order to be a Unichip dealer, you can't just limit yourself to, you know, 2 makes of cars. So I don't know if I'll be a dealer or just maybe just a seller. Maybe I can install it, especially if you get really good at doing it on 2 makes of cars. It'll go extra fast, precise. It'll be, you know, there won't be any downtime because, you know, automatically the wires tap into and get after. So there may be something there, but if not, it was for myself in the beginning anyway, and that's what it'll be. But another update on that rear exhaust, getting that wastegate installed, and I'll update you again shortly. Okay, so here I am. Just want to kind of give you a little bit more insight on the real wastegate. That part I was talking about. See how that button is curved at the top, and you have that little divot right here in it. The fake ones don't have that, and of course if you look on the side too, you've got some set screws here, and on this side as well. So that's one sure way that you can determine, you know, if it's fake or real. This number here on the top is the serial number. That can help you understand or know what build date Tial 38 millimeter. Now this is the MVS one. There's the MVR, which my understanding is the difference is the MVR is larger, 44 millimeter, and this one's 38 millimeter. The color chart, like I was telling you, so this one here is the for 11612 and after. So in one way you can know for sure if you can't read the serial number is look at the color springs, black, blue, yellow. You see a black in there, a red, a white towards the bottom down here, and so forth. But then look over here on the other ones. You got gray, maroon, beige, copper, maroon, beige, all the way down to golden brown, all these. Well, the kit that I bought has all these springs colors with it. It comes with every one of them. And so in my kit, I got red, green, blue, white, yellow, and black. So just by looking at the springs, the colors of the springs, not knowing what the serial number reads or how to determine, obviously you can tell by the spring colors alone that this is a 11612 and after build. So I'm wanting to run, I'm going to put it at 10 pounds. And if you look up here, this is the pressure in bar, that's the pressure in PSI. And it goes all the way up to what, 24 pounds right there. And you can run as little as 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it at 10. And then, like I said, my goal is 12 to 14. I'll run the rest of the gate off. I'll run it off 10 up to the gate. just off the springs alone. And then I'll use the boost controller to control up to 12 and so forth, because you may only see maybe about 9 maybe here. I'd go 11, and I may still, because like I said, 12 is where I'm looking for 13, 14, somewhere in there. But anyway, one of these two I'm going to use, and that'll give me the additional few PSI to play with the boost controller. All right, so just a little bit more on that. And the good news here, the build of this thing, of course, the springs have these little grooves in them that mate perfectly with the diameter of the springs. So this one goes here, and of course this one goes on the outside of it. If I was using yet a larger spring, it would go on the outside like that. But for the PSI that I'm going to use, the 10.15, never mind. Red and green right there. And of course that's the colors I'm using. And so before I actually leave, I want to kind of give you an idea how well this works. You just basically center it on there, and as you're going down, don't try to squeeze it together with this thing. Get close enough to where you can start your bolts in there, and then try to make this flange here, let's see here, I get my finger in there, that flange, try to get it even all the way around, because then you know that this thing isn't sitting cockeyed and it's going to pinch that diaphragm in there. I've got them all pretty much started loosely, and then what you're going to want to do is say you just tighten them down a little bit at a time in a star pattern, so that one side feeds down, and then you go over to the opposite side and feed it down a little bit, then go to the opposite side of that and feed it down a little bit, and so forth until you get this thing cinched down tight. And just always watch that gap right there, because this gap shouldn't be almost closed off, where on this side it's got a lot of room, because then you stand the chance to pinch that diaphragm. You certainly don't want to do that. But just a hair bit more guidance on that. But this works really well if you don't have a vise. Like I said, they're stupid cheap at Home Depot or Lowe's, wherever.